This is the College Game Day podcast for Friday, September 6th. This is the Picks edition of the podcast. I am Harry Lyles Jr. filling in for the great Reese Davis, along with Pete Thamel and Stanford Steve, gentlemen. It's been a busy week for all of us, and we all have to get to Ann Arbor, so we are going to get right into it. Pete, 3-4 last week. Pretty good. Steve, 2-5. Hey, we're all warming up, right? But let's jump right into it. Let's get into the game that we are going to be in Michigan for, Texas at Michigan. Noon kickoff here. Texas, 7-point favorite. The over-under is at 44.5. Let's start with Steve. Steve, what do you got for me?
It's not great when I watch it back on tape with what Michigan put out there against Fresno. Now, I think that's a lot to do with Fresno being a pain in the butt to play. I had that game just as an interesting one as it came out to fruition.
Did they cover?
Yeah, Fresno did by one.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that late pick six was So it wasn't great. I mean, Lyman getting beat, Bredesen getting knocked on his butt. Like, I've never seen that stuff from Michigan in the last 3 years, and it was just jaw-dropping to watch on film. But I believe they rally the troops. I believe they rely on that defense. And no one in the world is going to take Michigan, so I am. And I'll take those 7 points with the home team.
I talked to a couple of scouts. I'm going to do some stuff on Game Day on Saturday, just where these teams are. They obviously both had monster NFL draft classes last year. Michigan had 13. What did Texas have, 11? I think it might have been the most Texas players ever drafted. So anyway, there's a lot of good personnel gone, and a lot of good personnel on this field. There's going to be some stars on that field on Saturday. The prevailing thought was two things. One is that Michigan just lost more, right? Mm-hmm. And Texas lost a lot, but more replaceable. And two is we don't know who Michigan's playmakers are going to be. If there's weakness at Texas last year, it's the same as this year. Their secondary is pretty pedestrian. I just don't think, other than Colston Loveland, I've had 3 scouts tell me today Colston Loveland is the first tight end off the board. It's not some hot take. Boy, did he play it against Fresno. I know Steve is Steve watches the game solely through the prism of the tight end. I don't even think he watches the quarterback or the ball. Colston Loveland was good. My non-tight end loving eyes were obviously keenly aware of that. But I think Texas goes in. I think they have a strong O-line to counter what the strength of Michigan is, which is those 2 defensive tackles, best pairing in the country. And I think Texas finds a way with its skill to score. I don't think we have a high-scoring game. I think this hits the under, which is dangerous for me to say the under and they cover. But I think we got like a 24-14 type of a game.
Okay. 100%, Pete. I think I'm with you on the under and the cover here. I think obviously there's still some questions that need to be figured out for both of these teams that you're just not going to really find out in a week one. A lot of those I think that we'll end up seeing on Saturday. I'm also with you on the Longhorns. The next one we've got here, Iowa State at Iowa. I personally was a little bit frightened a bit that Iowa only led Illinois State 6-0 in that first half. Obviously, the final score
second half team.
Yeah, reflected a different ball game. It sure did, Steve. So Iowa 2.5-point favorites here with an over/under of 35.5. What you got?
Yeah, I always find myself rooting for the clones in the Cy-Hawk game. I don't know why. It's not been fun. I'll tell you that, because Iowa wins this game all the time. I believe Iowa State has to throw the ball over 30 times to win this game. They have talent on the perimeter, but again, that kind of plays in Iowa if you're going to be one-dimensional. I think a balance is key for that Iowa State offense, but I'm going to take the home team. I believe in that defense. This is, everyone's going to talk about the defense moving forward. People are going to make fun of the offense, whatever. I don't care. But I really want to see Iowa. Watching all their preseason stuff, there was a lot of belief that this defense could be better than the last couple, which is pretty astounding to me because there were some darn good players on that Iowa defense the last couple of years. So that's all about how the matchup is Iowa State's offense versus that Iowa defense, and I'll lay the 2.5 with the home team.
You know what makes defenses play better, Steve? Keeping the ball and holding on to it. It's a very novel concept. 6-0 for Illinois State would have been the final last year, right? Yeah. Forget worried about halftime. Look, I believe in Iowa. I believe in what Tim Lester has done there, and I think Cade McNamara is sort of the perfect guy to manage a game like this. Yeah, I'm pretty convicted in my Iowa pick here. I think Iowa State's good. I think they're gonna have a good season. I think they're gonna be in contention in the Big 12. I just think the stage and where this game is and how good Iowa's defense is, and their offense has shown it has a pulse, so that makes me a believer.
Yeah, I'm also going with Iowa here. Having done the Music City Bowl,
bet the clones.
I believe it was the 2022 game when they played Kentucky. Like, I really got a grip on like how talented that defense was. Like, there are guys that Kirk Ferentz was talking to about us, like, hey, like this guy's not going to play tonight, but like he's going to be a future NFL guy, and those guys are coming to fruition this year. So I am also going with the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, this next game is the one that I am personally most excited about this upcoming week, Colorado at Nebraska. Nate Tice from Yahoo had actually posted a clip of Dylan Raiola basically looking like a clone of Patrick Mahomes with just all of his movements, obviously the red jersey, 15, whatever. Nebraska, 7.5 point favorites in this one with an over under 75 or 57.5, excuse me, 75 would be crazy. Steve, how are we feeling about this game in particular?
If there's not turnovers, this thing could get to 75, Harry. The way Colorado's defense looked last week, they have to shore some things up. I do believe in that offense. I love the way they stretch the field. They stretch it sideline to sideline, and they stretch you, from end zone to end zone. We're going to really find out how improved Colorado is in this environment, knowing that what you have on defense travels. It always shows up in road games. I don't love it, but I'm going to take Colorado plus the 7.5. I like the hook on that. And I believe they backdoor one and get a late touchdown. But pressure's flipped here. I believe the pressure's on Nebraska here. I talked last week about Mike Elko being able to jumpstart an era, right? Last week they had all eyes on them, the big brand coming in. Rule has that now. This is a huge week too for his team, his program, Raiola, the whole shebang, that great fan base they have. So I believe they get it done, but I'll take Colorado plus the points.
I am convicted about Nebraska in this game. If there's one game I feel great about this week, I feel like this is Nebraska. I feel like this is a classic battle of continuity and cohesiveness, old school college, the way Matt Rhule built Baylor, the way he built Temple, versus the new era of college where you got essentially a whole new offensive line. There's a couple like faces that are similar there. And then you kind of have a whole new defense. Right now, Colorado needed to upgrade, and this isn't a criticism of the portal, but this is just a statement of fact where you need players to play together to be good, especially on the offensive line. O-line coaches will tell you it takes a month of playing together for an offensive line to really come together. UTEP was not, I'm sorry, North Dakota State didn't have the horses to expose that. And I thought Colorado's run defense was better than I thought it would be in that game. They picked him apart in the air. But and Steve's mentioned this on some game day calls this week. I feel like Nebraska's receiving core is one of the most underrated units in the country if they're healthy. Obviously, Isaiah Nair had 6 catches. Jamal Banks was a freak at Wake Forest. He had 4 in a tutty. Like again, Travis Hunter's very good. I don't know if their defense, considering the way North Dakota State surgically picked them apart and got what they wanted on third down, I think Nebraska will be able to do the same. And I think we're looking at like a 42-20 kind of game here.
Yeah, Pete, I also honestly feel pretty good about Nebraska this week. Like I don't want to say I'm a Colorado believer. That feels like a very strong word. let's not go there, right?
That Arizona State game really pushed over the edge in league play.
Right. Yeah, that really just did it for me, But I just from watching that Nebraska game, I know it was UTEP, but just some of the throws that Raiola was making, Pete, to your point, some of the catches that receiving core was making, and then to me, just the X factor in this game, that Colorado offensive line against that Nebraska defensive line. I think that is really going to be where that game gets decided. But I also feel very confident in Nebraska on this one. And honestly, I feel like if you don't get this one done, it's a letdown. All right. Because this feels like everything has built up towards this moment. Everything is in your favor. This is the moment where it's like, all right, are you turning this thing around or not? Because if you lose this one, it doesn't look great. So moving on, another game that's a really fun one, in my opinion. Tennessee at NC State, 7:30 on ABC. The Vols, 7.5 point favorites, 60.5 on the over/under. Steve, how are we feeling about this one?
The same way I feel about Texas, Michigan. Everybody saw Tennessee and Nico Iamaleava.
Sounds good to me.
Iamaleava. I thought it was Ava. Reese said
we miss Reese. Reese would know, Harry.
Yes, exactly. He's been practicing
You
all
can never
summer.
fill in for Reese Davis's enunciation.
Hey, the backup can't take snaps from under center sometimes. That's me.
That's why I have shotgun. You're good.
That's right.
It's the same deal with everybody seeing Texas wow people with offense. Tennessee did that last weekend against an inferior opponent. Michigan struggled against Fresno. NC State struggled. I watched that whole first half. They had a linebacker thrown out third play into the game for targeting on a brutal call, but he'll be back. And then they got that offense rolling. Really, really big deal here for McCall. You get a transfer quarterback in Grayson McCall from Coastal who put up monster numbers in his years there. Now he has to take that step. Didn't look great again last week, but Tennessee, this is different for me. Tennessee, everybody thinks of Hendon Hooker, the splash offense, Heupel, going up and down the field, even Joe Milton when he can complete a deep ball. But I think the key to their season is their defense. Pierce, I believe, is one of the best, if not the best defensive lineman in the SEC. Where can Tennessee rely on their defense if their offense sputters a little bit, which I think they will against a really good NC State defense. So I'm going to take the stink here, and I'll take the 7.5 with NC State. I don't love it, but for some reason I believe they got the goods to hang around.
I don't know what the stink is, but I'm putting my face in the diaper and going right there with you, my friend. I really think this is all set up, classically set up for NC State to vulture a home win here. And the player of the game will be Kevin Concepcion, the outstanding sophomore receiver from NC State, one of the best young receivers in the country. He had 9 for $121 against Western Carolina. I know it's Western Carolina, but he was a standout as a freshman. In Tennessee's glaring weakness is in the secondary. They have had a ton of turnover. They don't bring anybody back. Give me the pack, and I will certainly be muttering to myself in the middle of the first quarter about Dave Doran in big games when Nico's up 21-3.
I'm also going with the pack here. For all of the portal talk. For all the portal talk that we've heard this week through various different prisms, right, which we don't need to get into on this particular podcast, I feel like one of the better pairings that was made this offseason was between NC State, Dave Doran, and Grayson McCall. Grayson obviously had injuries last year that troubled him.
Yeah.
Had a game there last year. You could tell he wasn't totally comfortable with Tim Beck and what they were doing there. That's nothing against Tim. Obviously, they're looking good through 1 week here and should have a solid season. And then last year, Brennan Armstrong was not the quarterback that NC State needed, which was surprising because we had seen great Brennan Armstrong before. So now to have these two paired together, Steve, you mentioned their defense. I always trust a Tony Gibson defense.
Correct.
I don't care what it looks like, who's playing for him. He is going to get all of the juice out of whatever orange is in front of him. So I am also going to be going with the Wolfpack here. Another interesting game we've got Boise State at Oregon. 10 o'clock kick here. The Ducks 19.5-point favorites, 61.5 over under. Steve, this one, I might have felt more confident about Oregon prior to this past week. Personally, not so much right now. What about yourself?
Yeah, I get it. People just saw the score going back and watching. I thought they were super vanilla. But this is the issue and that teams have and coaches love actually playing against is with that spread system. A lot of times when you get in the red zone, it's condensed, right? They can't take the top off of things, and therefore you could play better defense against them. You saw that. I mean, Reese and I are on the sidelines looking at the stats, and we're like, what's going on? Gabriel's completing every pass. They're going up and down the field, and they just couldn't get it done in the red zone. So I also thought it was interesting of, Lanning's decision-making in the red zone, supposed to, kicking field goals, the whole deal going back to last year, losing the UW game because of that. But Boise State starting this season on a travel schedule like ours. Maybe they didn't go to Ireland, but they go to Statesboro, Georgia, and now they go to Eugene. So I'm interested to see Janty. Pete, you get your DVD from Boise State? They sent out the Heisman DVDs.
I have not gotten the DVD yet. I'm on the bandwagon though. A couple of scouts I talked to today said RB1 in this draft will either be Genty, Judkins, or Travion Henderson. So that's
he's in that class for sure.
That's your conversational field. He's a little small, so I think once he gets
Doug Martin, big old bowl Doug Martin.
Somebody gave me like a taller Quiz Rogers.
Okay,
that should speak to your West Coast soul, Steve.
It definitely does. Love Quiz. Genty's got a lot more girth than Quiz had. I'm going to take the points. I'll take them here until I see it. I know everybody's probably going to jump on Oregon thinking they're going to bust out here, which they might. But I also got to see Oregon with some consistency up front on both sides of the offensive line and defensive line. But I'll take all those points in Boise, hoping they get off to a start like they did last week in Statesboro.
Yeah, the problem with what happened in Statesboro is that they couldn't stop anything. And I do think if you're Dan Lanning, you like an opening win where you do win, but you're tested in some different ways, and there's some good teaching points to lock in on. So I do like this Boise team. I picked them to the playoff. I'm not going to flinch off that, but I do think that in Autzen it's going to be if you had trouble stopping Georgia State Georgia Southern in Statesboro. That's where I got it mixed up.
There you go.
Statesboro Southern. You are probably going to have some trouble stopping the Ducks in Autzen.
Pete, that's a big bet right there, man. I don't know. No, I'm also going with Oregon here. Steve, to your point, like they were moving the ball. I mean, it was just in terms of punching it in. And I trust that Dan Lanning, of all people, would be able to clean that up from one week to the next one, especially when you got a veteran quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. He was very complimentary of Ashton Jaunty this week, said he's the best running back he's seen in a couple of years. So it's
Dylan Gabriel's seen some things.
He certainly has. He's one of the most well-traveled quarterbacks in all of college football, going from UCF, won a Red River rivalry game last year, and now he's the quarterback at Oregon. So, Steve, we've got to let you go because you have to get to Ann Arbor, my friend. Before you get out of here really quick, would you like to pick Oklahoma State?
Absolutely. I'm staying with the Dogs. Give me Arkansas here. They might have had the easiest game I've seen all week last week. Just a total mismatch. But I like what Petrino did with that run game and opening it up. So speaking of old Boise State players with their quarterback coming to Fayetteville, so Oklahoma State, we know what they are, right? They want to get the ball to their running back and do things offensively. They have so many returning players, but I think this is a good barometer to see where Arkansas is. I believe they keep it within the number, so I'll take the Razorbacks. Give me all the underdogs on the slate for this pod. We're awesome, rolling with Steve. The Dogs.
Get on out of here, man. We'll let the sheriff take over from here.
All right. I appreciate you, Steve. I think that I was tempted on Arkansas here, very tempted, but and Bob Petrino is a great play caller. Taylon Green is a great fit for Bob Petrino's system. He ran well in the opener, but I think I'm going to take the Cowboys here. I was kind of impressed that they just like laid the hammer to South Dakota State and never let them breathe. And I just think pound for pound, you've got a veteran experienced team. You're going to be playing in a cauldron there in Stillwater. So I think eventually they wear them out and figure out a way to win 30-20.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, Pete. I think this is going to be one of those games that it's hard to call it a measuring stick for Oklahoma State because there are going to be tougher games on the schedule, but this feels like one where, we talk about a guy like Alan Bowman. You've got a lot of experience, but like there's still a lot more that you would hope for from a 26-year-old quarterback, 27-year-old quarterback. One of those is limiting turnovers. To me, you need to see a nice, clean game out of him. Obviously, they're experienced everywhere else. I am also going to take Oklahoma State here. And you know what? Let's go over. Let's get a little fun. Yeah, little finger gun action there. So yeah, hopefully my picks turn out great. And then I get invited back to the show. If not, then what I'm
basically careful what you wish for, Harry.
Hey, look, I'm just gonna have you send all of mine in the rest of the way. All
right. Well, we always race for the ribeye here, so there's a good chance there'll be a ribeye in front of us at some point soon at one of our game day stops down the trail.
100%. We always find a way to eat well, don't we?
Yes, we do. My suit pants will attest to that on occasions.
Without a doubt. Well, thank you for listening to the College Game Day podcast. Please download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or better yet, subscribe so you never miss a single episode.